My brother-in-law moved his family into my house while I was stationed in Japan and told the neighbors I had been killed in action. I finished my 14-month deployment in Japan last week. The flight from Tokyo felt endless, but all I could think about was surprising Karina 3 days early. She had no idea I was coming home. I grew a beard overseas. Karina always said she'd hate it, but I figured she'd forgive me once the shock of seeing me wore off. The taxi dropped me at the curb of our suburban neighborhood around noon. Paige from next door was watering her garden when I walked up the sidewalk with my duffel bag. She dropped the hose when she saw me. Her mouth fell open like she'd seen a ghost. Marcus? Her voice was barely audible. Oh my God. I waved and kept walking. Didn't have time to catch up with neighbors. I just wanted to see my wife. The front door was unlocked. That was odd. Karina was usually paranoid about security when I was deployed. Karina? I called out. I'm home early. No answer. Just the sound of children laughing upstairs. Children? We didn't have kids. I set my bag down in the entryway. Toys were scattered across our living room floor. A small bike helmet sat on the coffee table. The photos on the mantle caught my eye. Our wedding photo was gone. Instead, there were pictures of a family I barely recognized. Seth, Karina's brother, with his wife Tessa and their 2 kids. I climbed the stairs, following the sound of laughter. The door to our guest room was open. 2 dark-haired children were playing inside. The boy looked about 8. The girl maybe 6. They both had gap-toothed grins that reminded me of Seth. They stared at me with wide eyes. Who are you? The boy asked. I'm Marcus. This is my house. The girl tilted her head. Are you our new uncle? Before I could answer, Seth appeared in the doorway behind me. His face went white. Marcus, his voice cracked. You're back. Yeah, 3 days early. Surprise. I tried to keep my tone light. Where's Karina? Seth swallowed hard. She's at work. She'll be home later. At work? She works from home. She got a new job. Seth herded the kids toward the door. Miles, Nyla, go downstairs and watch TV for a bit. The children scampered past me. Seth wouldn't meet my eyes. What's going on? I asked. Why are there kids' toys everywhere? Why are you here? It's temporary. Seth's voice was strained. Just during the transition. What transition? Where's Karina? I pushed past him and walked down the hall to our bedroom. Seth's cologne sat on my bathroom counter. His clothes hung in my closet next to Tessa's dresses. What the hell is this? I demanded. You've moved into my house? Seth ran his hands through his hair. It's complicated. Karina will explain everything when she gets home. I pulled out my phone and called her, straight to voicemail. I tried again. Same result. Seth, I want answers now. The doorbell rang. Seth looked relieved at the interruption. I'll get that, he said, hurrying downstairs. I followed him. A man from across the street, Blake, I think, stood at the door with a casserole dish. Seth, I brought that chicken thing Tessa likes. We've been thinking about you all, and Blake stopped mid-sentence when he saw me, his face drained of color. My God, Blake's hand trembled as he extended it toward Seth. The resemblance is uncanny. Is this your cousin? Something like that, Seth mumbled, taking the casserole. Blake stared at me. The family resemblance. It must be hard, especially after everything. I stepped forward. What are you talking about? I'm Marcus. We've met before. Blake looked uncomfortable. Right, of course. I should go. Let you all have some family time. He backed away quickly. After Blake left, another neighbor appeared. Mrs. Chen, the elderly woman from down the street, carried a bouquet of flowers. For the family, she said, handing them to Seth. So hard for children, losing their uncle. She glanced at me and quickly looked away. Seth thanked her and closed the door. Why does everyone think I'm dead? I demanded. They misunderstood, Seth said. With us staying here temporarily, they just assumed. I grabbed Seth by the collar. Where's my wife? She'll be home later, I swear. Hours passed. No, Karina. I called her repeatedly. Every call went to voicemail. By midnight, I'd had enough. Seth and Tessa had put their children to bed in my guest room. They whispered in my kitchen like they owned the place. I'm going to find her myself, I announced, grabbing my keys. Wait until morning, Seth pleaded. She'll explain everything. I ignored him and drove downtown to Karina's old office. She hadn't worked there in 3 years, but it was the only lead I had. The receptionist looked confused when I asked for Karina. Karina Reeves? She doesn't work in this building anymore, said Faith at the front desk. Do you know where she works now? Faith hesitated. Last spring, she started at the Military Family Support Center. She's a grief counselor for families who've lost someone in service. LOM. My stomach dropped. A grief counselor? Yes, Faith said softly. After what happened to you, she wanted to help others through similar losses. I stared at her. What happened to me? Faith looked uncomfortable. I'm sorry. I thought you were a relative. Are you not family? I'm her husband, Marcus. Faith's eyes widened. That's not possible. Her husband died in Japan. There was a memorial service and everything. I felt like I'd been punched. Seth had told everyone I was dead. I stood in the entryway staring at Faith. Her words echoed in my head. Her husband died in Japan. The receptionist looked increasingly uncomfortable under my gaze. There must be some mistake, I said. I'm Marcus Reeves. I just got back from deployment. Faith shook her head. I attended the memorial service. Karina was devastated. I pulled out my military ID and showed it to her. Faith's eyes widened. Oh my God, she whispered. This isn't possible. I asked for the address of the Military Family Support Center. Faith wrote it down with shaking hands. Please don't tell anyone I gave you this, she said. I don't understand what's happening. I drove straight to the center. The modern glass building housed several veteran support organizations. I found Karina's name on the directory board beside Military Grief Services. The elevator ride to the third floor felt endless. I stepped into a quiet waiting area with soft lighting and motivational posters about healing. A middle-aged receptionist looked up from her computer. "I need to see Karina Reeves," I said. "Do you have an appointment?" she asked. "I'm her husband." The receptionist's face fell. "Sir, that's not appropriate. Mrs. Reeves lost her husband in service." "I am her husband," I insisted. "I just returned from Japan." She reached for the phone. "I'm calling security." "Wait," I held up my hands. "Is she here? Just tell me if she's in the building." "Mrs. Reeves is with a client. She'll be unavailable for at least another hour." I nodded and backed away. "I'll wait outside." Instead, I walked down the hallway looking at office nameplates. I found Karina's door at the end of the corridor. It was closed, but a small window showed it was empty. I tried the handle. It opened. Karina's office was small but tastefully decorated. Her diploma hung on one wall. A framed photo of me in uniform sat on her desk. I picked it up, stunned. It was my official military portrait from 2 years ago. Next to it lay a stack of pamphlets. I grabbed one and nearly collapsed. "In loving memory, Staff Sergeant Marcus Reeves." My face stared back at me from the cover. Inside was a memorial service program dated 4 months ago. I sat in Karina's chair, trying to process what I was seeing. Why would Seth tell everyone I was dead? What could he possibly gain? My phone buzzed. A text from Seth. "Where are you?" Karina's worried. I didn't respond. Instead, I called my buddy Ronan from my unit. He answered on the third ring. "Marcus? Holy shit, man, how are you?" "Ronan, I need you to check something for me. What's my status in the system?" "What do you mean? Am I listed as active? Deceased? What?" Ronan paused. "Let me check." I heard keyboard clicks. "You're active duty, man. Everything looks normal." "Why?" I explained the situation briefly. Ronan went silent. "That's seriously messed up," he finally said. "Someone's been lying to your wife. Can you find out if anyone received death benefits for me?" "I'll make some calls," Ronan promised. "Stay safe, brother." I left Karina's office and drove back home. My mind raced with possibilities, none of them good. When I pulled into the driveway, Seth was waiting on the porch. He looked nervous. "Where have you been?" he demanded. "Karina's been calling me worried sick." "Really? Let me talk to her then." Seth hesitated. "She's not here right now." "I know," I said coldly. I went to her office. Seth's face paled. "You shouldn't have done that." "Why? Because everyone there thinks I'm dead?" Seth glanced around nervously. "Let's talk inside." I followed him into my own house. Tessa sat at the kitchen table, her eyes red from crying. The kids were nowhere to be seen. "Where are Miles and Nyla?" I asked. "At a friend's house," Tessa whispered. "We thought it would be better." I slammed the memorial pamphlet on the table. "Explain this." Seth stared at it for a long moment. "It's not what you think. I think you told my wife I was dead. I think you moved into my house. I think you've been collecting my benefits." Seth flinched at the last accusation. I knew I'd hit the mark. "It wasn't like that," Tessa protested weakly. "We were helping Karina through a difficult time." "By stealing my life?" I was furious. "Where is she? I want to see my wife." "She's not ready," Seth said. "The shock could be too much." I grabbed my keys. "I'm finding her myself." "Wait," Seth called after me. "I'll explain everything." I turned back. "You've got 5 minutes." Seth sat heavily on the couch. "About 4 months ago, Karina received notification that you'd been killed in action. It devastated her." "That's impossible," I said. "I've been fine the whole deployment." The notification seemed official. Tessa added. "Military representatives came to the house and everything." I shook my head. "That doesn't make sense. The military doesn't make those kinds of mistakes." Seth looked away. "Karina had a breakdown. She couldn't stay in this house alone with all the memories. We moved in to help her through it." "And the benefits?" I asked coldly. Seth didn't answer. "That told me everything." I pulled out my phone and called a detective I knew from before my deployment. Devin had helped me with a car theft case years back. "Devin, it's Marcus Reeves. I need your help with something urgent." I explained the situation briefly. Devin was silent for several seconds. "That's identity theft, fraud, and probably a dozen federal crimes," he finally said. "I can start looking into it tonight." "Thank you," I said. "I need to know who sent that fake death notification and where my military benefits have been going." After hanging up, I called a lawyer friend, Lionel. He'd practiced military law for over 20 years. "This is serious," Lionel said after hearing my story. "Falsifying military death notifications is a federal offense. We need to document everything before confronting anyone." I agreed to meet him the next morning. Seth watched me from the doorway. "What are you doing?" "Getting answers," I said. "Starting with where my wife actually is." Seth's phone buzzed. He checked it and his face changed. "That's Karina now," he said. "She wants to know if everything's okay." "Give me the phone," I demanded. Seth hesitated, then handed it over. I read the message. "Is everything all right with the kids? You've been quiet today." I typed back, "We need to talk. It's important." The response came quickly. "What's wrong? Are the kids okay?" I took a deep breath and wrote, "Marcus is home." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, "That's not funny, Seth. Don't ever joke about that." I handed the phone back to Seth. "I'm going to find her. Either you tell me where she is, or I'll have the police involved by morning." Seth looked defeated. "She's staying with Alana." "Her best friend?" I asked. Seth nodded. "She couldn't bear to be in this house after the notification," Tessa explained. "Alana has been letting her stay in her guest room." I grabbed my keys again. "Address, now!" Seth wrote down Alana's address. "Please be gentle with her. She really believes you died." I stared at him. "And whose fault is that?" As I walked out the door, My phone rang. It was Devin. Marcus, I found something already. Someone's been collecting your military benefits for months. The paperwork was filed right after your supposed death. Let me guess, I said. Seth Reeves? How did you know? Just a hunch, I replied. Keep digging. I want to know how deep this goes. I drove toward Alana's house, my hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. After 14 months away, I was finally going to see my wife, but she thought she was meeting a ghost. I drove to Alana's house with the evidence folder on the passenger seat. My knuckles were white on the steering wheel. The truth about Seth's betrayal made my blood boil. The suburban neighborhood was quiet in the late evening. Alana's modest two-story home had lights on upstairs. I parked at the curb and took a deep breath. I grabbed the folder and approached the front door. My heart hammered in my chest. After 14 months away, I was about to see my wife, who thought I was dead. I rang the doorbell. Footsteps approached from inside. The porch light flicked on. Alana opened the door. Her eyes widened in shock. The glass of water she was holding crashed to the floor. Marcus? She whispered. Oh my God, where is she? I asked. Alana backed away, her face pale. This isn't possible. You died. I'm very much alive, I said, and I need to see my wife. Alana shook her head in disbelief. She can't handle this. She's been through enough. Seth lied to everyone, I said firmly. I never died. I just finished my deployment. A voice called from upstairs. Alana, who's at the door? My heart stopped. Karina's voice. After all these months. It's for you, Alana called back, her voice trembling. I heard footsteps on the stairs. I stepped into the entryway, my eyes fixed on the staircase. Karina appeared at the top, wearing sweatpants and one of my old t-shirts. She froze mid-step, her face drained of color. Her hand gripped the railing. No, she whispered. No, this isn't real. It's me, Karina. I said. I'm home. She swayed dangerously. I rushed up the stairs as her knees buckled. I caught her before she fell. She was lighter than I remembered. Her body went rigid in my arms. Her eyes were wide with disbelief and terror. You're dead, she whispered. I got the notification. They showed me the paperwork. I carried her down to the living room and set her gently on the couch. Alana hovered nearby, looking terrified. I was never dead, I said. Someone lied to you. Karina stared at me, her hands shaking. She reached out tentatively and touched my face, my beard. Her fingers traced the scar on my cheek from years ago. Marcus? Her voice broke. Is it really you? I pulled out my military ID and placed it in her hands. I just finished my deployment. I came home 3 days early to surprise you. Tears streamed down her face. But the military officers, they came to the house. They had papers. Your commanding officer signed them. It was all fake, I said. Seth orchestrated the whole thing. Her expression shifted from shock to confusion. Seth, my brother? Why would he do that? For money, I said. And our house. I showed her the documents Devin had sent, the benefits, paperwork with Seth's signature, the transfer of funds to his account, the false death notification. Karina's hands trembled as she read. This can't be real. Seth wouldn't do this. He moved his whole family into our house, I said. Told everyone I died in combat. He's been collecting my benefits for months. Alana sat beside Karina. I knew something felt off about the notification. The officers seemed strange, not like what I'd expect. They weren't real officers, I said. Just people Seth hired to complete the con. Karina looked up from the papers. After they came, I couldn't function. I had a breakdown. Seth suggested I stay with Alana while he took care of the house. And you've been here ever since? I asked. She nodded. 4 months. I couldn't bear to be in our home without you. Seth told me you were at work, I said. I went to your old office downtown. They said you were working as a grief counselor. I started volunteering at the Military Family Support Center, Karina explained, helping families who lost loved ones in service. It felt therapeutic. I took her hands in mine. They were cold. I'm so sorry you went through this. Her tears fell freely now. I thought I'd lost you forever. Seth is still at our house, I said, with Tessa and the kids. They've been living there since you got the notification. Karina's expression hardened. He told me it was temporary, just until I could handle being there again. He's been collecting my military benefits, I said. Nearly $50,000 so far. Karina stood suddenly. I want to confront him. Now, are you sure? Alana asked. Maybe you should process this first. I've been grieving for 4 months, Karina said. I want answers. We drove to our house in silence. Karina stared out the window, occasionally touching my arm as if to confirm I was really there. When we pulled into the driveway, the lights were still on. Seth's car was parked in my spot. Ready? I asked. Karina nodded. More than ready. We walked to the front door together. I opened it without knocking. Seth and Tessa were in the living room, talking in hushed tones. They looked up when we entered. Seth's face went pale when he saw Karina standing beside me. Karina, I can explain. Explain what? She demanded. How you told me my husband was dead? How you forged military documents? How you stole our house? Tessa started crying. It wasn't supposed to go this far. How far was it supposed to go? I asked. You moved your entire family into our home. Seth stood up. After the financial trouble we had last year, we were desperate. The idea just came to me. The idea to fake my death? I was furious. To put Karina through hell? We were going to tell her eventually, Tessa said weakly, once we had enough saved for our own place. You let me believe my husband was dead for 4 months. Karina's voice shook with rage. I went to grief counseling. I couldn't eat or sleep. Seth took a step toward her. Karina, you're my sister. I love you. This started as a way to help you financially. By stealing from me, I demanded. By lying to everyone? The benefits were just going to waste while you were deployed, Seth argued. You were getting paid anyway. I pulled out my phone. I've already contacted the authorities. Detective Devon has the evidence. My lawyer Lionel is preparing legal action. Seth's face crumpled. Please don't do this. Think of Miles and Nyla. You should have thought of your children before committing fraud, Karina said coldly. The front door opened again. A man I didn't recognize stepped in. He stopped short when he saw the scene. Victor, Seth said. This isn't a good time. Is this him? Victor asked, staring at me. The guy who's supposed to be dead? I stepped forward. I'm Marcus Reeves, the very much alive husband of Karina. Victor shook his head. Man, Seth, you said this was foolproof, that no one would ever know. You were in on this too? Karina asked, her voice breaking. Victor looked uncomfortable. I just helped with some paperwork. Seth said it was temporary. It was temporary, Seth insisted, just until we got back on our feet. I heard sirens in the distance. That would be the police, I said. Devon works fast. Seth lunged for the back door. I blocked his path. Running will only make it worse, I said. The sirens grew louder. Tessa collapsed onto the couch, sobbing. Seth stood frozen in the middle of the room, trapped. Karina took my hand and squeezed it tight. I still can't believe you're really here. I'm not going anywhere, I promised. Not again. The police cars pulled up outside. Red and blue lights flashed through the windows. Seth's elaborate lie was finally coming to an end. Karina leaned against me as officers approached the door. We have a lot to rebuild. We'll start tonight, I said, in our home. The doorbell rang. Seth's shoulders slumped in defeat. His perfect con was over, and my life with Karina could finally begin again. I called the military headquarters the morning after confronting Seth. Karina sat beside me, still looking shell-shocked. The officer on the phone was confused by my story. Staff Sergeant Reeves, our records show you're very much alive and active, he said. I explained the situation. The officer promised an immediate investigation into the fraudulent death notification. He sounded disturbed by the whole scenario. We take these matters extremely seriously, he assured me. Falsifying military documents is a federal offense. Karina squeezed my hand as I hung up. We were sitting in our kitchen, reclaiming our space. Seth and Tessa had been taken to the police station for questioning the night before. I still can't believe he did this, Karina whispered. My own brother. The military investigation moved quickly. Within 2 days, they discovered Seth had accessed my personal information through Karina's computer. He'd created convincing forgeries of official documents. Seth had hired 2 actors to pose as military notification officers. They delivered the fake death notice to Karina 4 months ago. The investigation revealed he'd paid them nearly $500 for the performance. Detective Devon called with more findings. Seth accessed your military benefits almost immediately after the fake notification. He redirected everything to his accounts. I wasn't surprised. How much did he steal? Just over $50,000 so far, Devon said. We've frozen all the accounts. We're building a solid case. Karina and I spent the next week clearing Seth's family's belongings from our home. We boxed everything up and arranged for Seth's parents to collect the items for Miles and Nyla. The children are staying with my parents, Karina said after speaking with her mother. They don't understand what's happening. I felt bad for the kids. None of this is their fault. The neighbors started coming by once word spread about what had happened. Blake brought another casserole, this time with an apology. I should have questioned things more, he said. Seth's story seemed off, but I never imagined he'd do something this elaborate. Mrs. Chen brought fresh flowers. These are for welcoming, not sympathy, she said firmly. I am very happy you are alive. Paige from next door cried when she apologized. I saw you that first day and nearly had a heart attack. Seth told us you died in some classified operation. The military completed their investigation within 2 weeks. They found Seth had forged signatures from my commanding officer and fabricated an entire mission report about my supposed death. My lawyer Lionel helped us file civil lawsuits against Seth and Tessa. We'll recover damages beyond just the stolen benefits, he promised. The emotional distress alone is substantial. The criminal charges came next. Seth and Tessa were formally charged with fraud, identity theft, forgery of government documents, and theft of government funds. Seth faced additional charges for impersonating military personnel. Karina quit her job at the Military Family Support Center. I can't counsel people about grief when my own was based on a lie, she said. She returned to graphic design, working from home again. I took extended leave from active duty to help rebuild our life together. The military compensated us for all the stolen benefits. They also offered me a commendation for how I handled the situation. I declined it. I didn't need recognition for exposing my brother-in-law's crimes. Seth and Tessa accepted a plea deal to avoid a lengthy trial. Seth received 8 years in federal prison. Tessa got 3 years with possibility of early release. Miles and Nyla remained with their grandparents. Karina visited them regularly, trying to maintain some relationship despite everything that had happened. They're innocent in all this, she said after one visit. They just miss their parents. I agreed. The children had been victims too, used as props in Seth's elaborate scheme. 6 months after my return, Karina and I hosted a neighborhood gathering. It was partly to thank everyone for their support after the truth came out, but also to reclaim our place in the community. It feels like we're starting over, Karina said as we prepared for guests to arrive. I noticed she seemed different that morning. She kept touching her stomach and smiling secretively. Is everything okay? I asked. She took my hand and placed it on her belly. I wasn't going to tell you until I was sure, but I took a test yesterday. We're having a baby. I pulled her into my arms, overwhelmed with emotion. After everything we'd been through, this felt like a true new beginning. I love you, I whispered against her hair. I love you too, she replied, and I'm never letting you go again. The doorbell rang, announcing our first guests. We opened the door together, ready to face our future. The nightmare Seth created was finally over. He'd stolen 14 months of our marriage with his lies, but we had the rest of our lives to make up for lost time. And this time, no one would come between us.